Theodore, let's talk a little bit about negative gearing and how it can work, assuming that you can cover the cash flows. I'm going to pull up our property due diligence forecasting tool, and I'm going to show you the numbers and how they work. Okay, so we've built this beautiful tool. There's a lot to it that allows us to crunch the numbers. So in the purpose of this example, we're going to use a $500,000 property. We're assuming $20,000 in stamp duty and some legal fees, which means that it's going to cost us about $521,600. We're going to put in a 20% deposit plus stamp duty, so $120,000, and we're going to assume an interest rate of 6.5%. Now, I've also put in that there's going to be a $500 letting fee, so typically it's 1 week rent. We're going to assume council rates, insurances, and property agent commissions. We're also going to assume that the weekly rental is $500 per week. Depending on where we're buying, then that is possible. In some cases, it is not, but that assumes that we're going to have a gross rental yield of 5%, a net rental yield of 4.42%, and a net rental yield after interest of 0.8%, okay? Now, I've also put in the individual, assuming that they are earning $150,000 each. Their property is owned 50-50 between partners, and basically this works out as follows. We've got total rent of $25,000. We've got less outgoings of $29,000. So it basically means that the property is losing $4,000 per year or $77 per week. Now, the benefit in Australia is that we have the ability to take advantage of negative gearing, right? So the tenant is paying for the vast majority of it, the taxman is covering a slice, and the investor is going to be out of pocket as follows. So we've got $557 in weekly outgoings. We've got some tax savings per week of $30. Thanks, government, for covering 5%. But the individual is going to need to come up with $47 per week, or about $2,442 per annum, in order to cover the cash flow shortfall. Now, in isolation, that's not great. So now we go to the growth side, okay? Now, I've been super conservative. I've assumed that we own this property for 20 years and we have an annual growth rate of 4%. Keep in mind that for most areas of Australia, good quality areas have returned 8 to 10% per year. So that $500,000 property over the course of 20 years increases by $595,000. So that property is going to be worth just shy of 1.1 million. So it's at an appreciation of about 119%, okay? Now, if we sell it, let's assume that we've got agents' fees of 2%. We've got some advertising costs. Our total selling costs of $25,000. We've got a calculation here in terms of our capital gains. So we sell it for $1 million. Our cost base is $547,000. We made a capital gain of $548,000. We've got a taxable gain of $274,000, assuming that we've got a 50% CGT discount. Based on assuming that the individuals are earning the same amount of income, this means that they're going to have to pay $124,000 in tax, which means that they have a $375,000 profit after tax, which represents a 68% ROI, or a cash-on-cash return of 222%, because they put in 120. They've had total ongoing investment of the negative gearing of $48,000. They've made $168,000 in terms of that. So basically, they have a 222% return on investment. So this is why negative gearing works for some people. This is a very conservative assumption. If I put this up to an 8% return, just to give you guys a little bit of context, same calculations, it's now a 366% increase. And if we go down to the calculations at the bottom, it's a 227% return on investment on the capital, but it's a 770% return on cash investment. Now, for many of our clients, they buy multiple properties. So we use equity on other properties in order to then buy more properties. So this basically gives us an infinite cash on cash return, because if you're not having to tip your own cash into that particular investment, then it provides us with basically the ability to turn money into more money through compounding. So negative gearing is painful if you don't have the cash flow to support it, but is a strategy that many of our clients have used to amass tremendous amounts of wealth. So if you've got any questions, hit me up in the comments.